Martin, question number.
John Corley. Tánaiste, today thousands of students and families are marching to Leinster House. Those students are deeply concerned about their future, about the government's plans, the government's commitments and the government's promises. And they need answers, they need clarity. It's very clear that in advance of the last election you've made many commitments. But Minister Quinn himself, as you know, brazenly went up to Trinity College 4 days before the last general election, and he actually signed the pledge himself, the USI pledge. So did you, Tánaiste. And during the election campaign, Minister Quinn promised to reverse the €500 increase in the student services charge, and you were opposed, Minister Quinn said, and the Labour Party was, to third-level fees by either the front or back doors. The student contribution charge increase was not reversed and has not been reversed. And you still will not say, even now, whether it will be increased or not. To do so, in my view, would be an act of deep cynicism by the government. And I would ask the Tánaiste if he would agree that it would be a very negative step and retrograde step if the government was to act in terms of increasing those charges, given the centrality of participation in third-level education. Because what we did witness in the last decade was a dramatic and significant expansion of third-level participation in this country and a transformation of the research landscape in Ireland. And if we're to achieve recovery, we have to do that. Now, yesterday Minister Quinn would not comment on the third-level fees issue because he said before a budget, and I quote, "The politics of promises, if you like, in the present economic situation are such, and are on a scale that I don't think any of us fully realise, that no such promises can be given, and any such promises would be misleading." He said that yesterday. Yet 4 days before the election, he could sign any pledge students put before him. You could promise all you like before an election, but you can't state clearly what you're going to do days in advance of a budget. And fundamentally, the economic challenges facing the country are the same now as they were then. There is no difference, as your fiscal plan of last Friday reveals. Tánaiste, I want to ask you, will you honour your promise to decrease the registration fee, and will you once and for all state openly and honestly whether or not the registration fee is going to be further increased, or whether or not third-level fees will be introduced?
Tánaiste.
Ceann Comhairle, Deputy Martin, you signed something yourself, or at least if you didn't sign it, your government signed it. This time last year, you entered into a memorandum of understanding with the Troika. And this is what it said: ensuring a greater student contribution towards tertiary education. That's what you signed, for increased student, and increased. That's the.
Would you please?
That's the legacy.
Would you please?
That's the legacy, Deputy Martin, that you and your party left to this government, and an agreement with the Troika that the student contribution and that the overall student contribution to third-level education would be increased. Now, the government is acutely aware. I'm acutely aware of the difficulties that are faced by students and their families over the cost of third-level education. I'm also acutely aware of how unemployment affects families, young graduates leaving college. This government, and you're wrong incidentally, that the economic circumstances are the same now as they were a year ago. They're significantly improved on what they were a year ago, because this government has taken action to bring the economy forward. What the programme for government does is it undertakes to commits to undertake a full review of third-level funding, with a view to introducing a funding system that will provide third-level institutions with reliable funding, but which does not impact on access for students. The Higher Education Authority has recently furnished a report on the sustainability of the existing funding framework for higher education. That was submitted to Minister Quinn on Monday, The report examines the interrelationships between funding levels, the scale of growth and the maintenance of quality in the system. Now, as I said, the Minister has just received that report and it's something that he is considering. That will obviously help inform the consideration by governments of the policy options which are open in relation to the funding of higher education and in relation to what may or may not be in the budget and the estimates. That's something that has yet to be finally determined by government.
Thank you. Deputy Martin.
The Troika report actually has been renegotiated twice, allegedly by yourself and your government. And indeed, when our spokespeople met with the Troika leaders recently, they said the detail is a matter for the government. We want the bottom lines intact. And you're correct in saying that fiscally the situation has improved somewhat, because we did take the tough decisions. But the point is this: I asked you a simple question. Were you going to reverse the increase in the registration charge or not? And are you going to reintroduce third-level fees? A simple yes or no answer to that would be appreciated. Because Minister Quinn has said recently, and he said he has no regrets as he signed the pledge on behalf of the Labour Party, not the new coalition government. But that is deeply dishonest politics. It is deeply cynical politics.
Question, please.
And it really represents cheating on the students. Cheating students to win votes before an election. And you haven't got the guts or the honesty to say here on the floor of the House what you're going to do in budget time. Can you not tell the students who are marching, are you going to decrease the charge or not? Are you going to bring back fees or not? A straight answer would be appreciated, Tánaiste.
Deputy Martin, you spent 14 years in government.
Not a waste.
You must. There's no point in asking a question if you don't hear the answer, please. Would you please? Please settle down, please. Listen to the people speaking. Applies on both sides.
You must have learned in that 14 years that no government is going to announce matters which are appropriate to the budget in advance of the budget. And what is done in respect of student fees, student registration charges, the funding of third-level education and the details of that is not something that I'm going to announce today in advance of the budget, and well, you know that, and therefore getting up and grandstanding and saying that you're going to and looking for these answers when you know very well that we're not going to give answers to the detail of what will be in the budget in advance of budgeting. But you can be assured of this. You can be assured of this. Any commitment. The political commitments that the Labour Party entered into will be honoured, but we have to get out of what we have to do is we have to work our way out of the programme that you saddled us with before we got into government.
Deputy Jerry Adams, please. Deputy Jerry Adams.
Well,
Deputy Jerry Adams, please. Thank you.
Tánaiste Freagra ar B ar an ceist seo. An intíonn tú go bhfuil Kangol at ar fáil an Ericus agus Saoirse na Daoine. An intíonn tú leis an méid a dúirt Thomas Davis, educate that you may be free. Agus Tánaiste má intíonn tú leis sin an dacian tú leis an ceart bonasach go méid fáil ar Ericus a gahan Saranach. Tánaiste, in Labour's election manifesto, and I quote, "We refuse to go back to the days when only the relatively wealthy could count on going to third level, or when a family could only afford to send one of their children to college." You signed, famously, a pledge in the days before the general election, pledging to oppose the reintroduction of fees. Rory Quinn was photographed signing the same pledge. Is this worth anything? Is this just another pledge, another broken promise of this government to add to the ever-growing list? Tánaiste, third-level, high-quality education is a vital prerequisite to kick-starting economic recovery. Access to education should also be the right of every citizen. And the existence of this right, or indeed the absence of this right, is an indicator of what type of society this is. So, Tánaiste, do you accept that any increase in college fees or additional cuts in student supports will ensure that third-level education is not an option for thousands of young people across this state?
Thank you, Deputy Tánaiste.
Yes, I do agree that third-level education is hugely important, both for the individuals who benefit from it and also for our economic recovery. And that is why, in terms of the education programme, that is why this government, for example, in the capital programme that was announced last week, has front-loaded projects which provide for the building of schools and the improvement of our education system. As I've said earlier, this government is acutely aware of the difficulties that many families have in financing their children through education. We do have a situation where 44% of students in this state do not pay fees at all, either tuition fees or registration fees, because they're on grants. The remainder of students do not pay tuition fees, and there is a registration fee. Now, can I contrast that with the situation in Northern Ireland, where your party is in government? The student fee for a student in Queen's University, for example, is €3,837. Now, can you tell me, given all of the things that you have quite rightly said, and your quoting of Thomas Davis, with which I agree, all of the things that you have said about education, can you explain to me why it's okay to charge a student in Belfast €3,837 and you're complaining about the student registration charge down here, which is just about half of that amount? Explain that to me.
Well, first of all,
Sorry, please. Please.
The students in the north will be really delighted that you're interested in their welfare. There has been no increase in student fees in the north, and there will not be any increase in student fees in the north. Now, getting back to the question I asked you, first of all, you said that you agreed with what I outlined. Now, surely then that means if you agree, if there's consistency in the Labour Party at all, if you agree with what I outlined, then you should make it clear that there will not be any increase in college fees, and there will not be any additional cuts in student support. And also, John Corlea.
Sorry, don't mind the back.
It's impossible even to hear myself talking.
Deputy, please.
Tánaiste, why are you planning to abolish financial support for postgraduate students from next year? Why are you continuing to strip special needs assistance from children who need them? Why are you planning to take up to 2,000 teaching posts out of the system in the budget? So instead of playing a little game of, tit for tat in terms of this issue, why don't you just spell out why you don't honour pledges? Why are pledges so important before an election, and then after an election they can be torn up? And if the government doesn't honour the pledge that you and Rory Quinn signed, can we expect you to follow the example of Willie Penrose and stand by your principles?
Thank you. Tánaiste.
Well, student fees would have to increase here by an awful lot before they would get to what they are in Northern Ireland under the administration in which your party participates. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that you've listed off a number of things that you've read about in the newspapers. Deputy Adams, surely you of all people knows better than to believe everything that you read in the newspapers. I mean, speculation. speculation about what may or may not be in the budget is something that we'll see about in the course of time. Let you be absolutely clear about this. This government is committed to supporting education in this country. That was reflected quite clearly in the part of the budgetary process which has already been made public, where we have indicated quite clearly our commitment to the education system through the provision of funding for additional schools to meet the needs of children, for school extensions and for the capital programme in our education system. The government's continuing commitment to education will be reflected in the budget. It will be done so within the constraints that we have to operate within, but there can be no doubt about this government's commitment to education and doing the very best for the education system and for the children of this country and for the students of this country, given the difficult economic circumstances that we have inherited.
Thank you. Deputy Shane Ross, please.
Thank you, Concola. Concola, I'd like to contrast the government's action with its words on two issues. The government, when it came into power, it handed over political and economic clout where it should have retained it, and another area it retained political power where it should have handed it over. It handed it over on the issue of the EU and the IMF, and we've sacrificed our sovereignty on that issue. But it retained it where it promised it would hand it over, and that's on the issue of political patronage. Now, the promises that were made by both parties in power during the election about an end to cronyism completely evaporated in the programme for government. I don't know why they evaporated, but they did so, and I think we need an explanation for that. But it appears from recent reports that the spoils of war have just moved from here to there. There has been little change. 20 appointments which have been made to semi-state bodies recently have been given to people who are closely linked with Fine Gael and Labour. 5 out of 6 judges have similar links. And it's no coincidence, I suppose, as one who's been in this House for a long period of time, that I personally know an enormous number of these people appointed not because of their merit or the commercial atmosphere, but because they have got political connections which involve them in being interacting with me and other people in this House. I'd like to ask the Tánaiste this. The system which he set up and which the government set up, which was to encourage and invite public applications for semi-state bodies, looks very like at this stage as though it's a sham. And I say this because the minister in charge always has the power to make that appointment. The minister does not have to take any notice whatsoever of the applications or the recommendations which come to him. And in some of these cases,
we're over time.
Yeah, in some of these cases, that particular process is simply being bypassed. Could the Tánaiste, who himself said these appointments would be made on merit, assure me that a new, transparent system is going to be set up which removes these appointees from their political masters, and it doesn't just become a Tweedledum Tweedledee situation?
Tánaiste.
Well, first of all, Deputy Ross is wrong. The government did not hand over power over economic matters to the EU, ECB and the IMF. We inherited an agreement that the previous government made. We are working that agreement, and we have, as Deputy Ross is very well aware, succeeded in negotiating significant elements of that agreement. And indeed, the work that the Taoiseach is doing today in Berlin in his discussions with Chancellor Merkel is with a view to our securing continued renegotiation of the terms of that agreement and getting a better deal for Ireland in the period ahead. In relation to the issue of changes that the government is making in the way in which appointments are being made, first of all, The government has changed the top-level appointments commission. We've appointed an independent chair. We've brought in people from the private sector to be part of the top-level appointments commission, which is responsible for the most senior appointments in the civil service. Secondly, we have introduced a system whereby anybody can make an application or express an interest in appointment to a state board. Departments have on their websites invited expressions of interest for the appointment to state boards. In addition to that, we have introduced a system whereby the chairpersons of state boards appear before an Oireachtas committee. I understand that to date, 5 chairpersons of state boards have already appeared before Oireachtas committees. All of the appointments.
Deputy Ross asked the question. He's entitled to hear his reply. Would you please stay quiet? Thank you.
All of the appointments that government has made to state bodies have been appointments that have been made on merit, and the government will continue to work to change, make more open, get the best possible people to participate in the work of state bodies. But ultimately, of course, the decision on appointment to state bodies and state boards is a matter for government. Government will exercise that and will stand over the decisions that we make in respect of it.
Thank you. Deputy Ross, 1 minute.
I'd like to thank the Tánaiste. The problem is that under the new system, we're still getting ex-Fine Gael TDs, we're still getting ex-Fine Gael candidates, we're still getting people closely attached to the Labour Party who don't make this declaration when they get their positions. And what is necessary, first of all, is that the system is transparent. Secondly, that there's a declaration. But finally, that this system is not just a sham. It's totally cosmetic what we're seeing at the moment, because the Minister is certainly putting out ads, as has happened in many cases, for these positions. But once the ads have been replied to, the recommendations made, the Minister makes the appointment and can ignore...
Could we have a question, please?
And can ignore the advertisements. What does the Tánaiste intend to do to ensure that political appointees' loyalties to parties are transparent to those who are making the appointments?
Thank you. Tánaiste.
Deputy Ross, you're an ex...
Sorry, it was the Tánaiste, not yourself. Thanks. Tánaiste, thank you.
Deputy Ross.
Sorry, would you... When you're ready, Tánaiste.
Deputy Ross. Deputy Ross, you're an ex-Fine Gael public representative yourself. It doesn't compromise your independence. It doesn't compromise your independence here, nor does it, I presume, compromise your independence when you write for a Sunday newspaper. The fact that somebody has a membership or an association with a political party, or has had in the past, doesn't disqualify them from appointment to state boards. What I have said very clearly, the government has already put in place significant changes in relation to appointments. In respect of the top-level appointments commission, the independent chair and the private sector involvement, in respect of appointments of the chairpersons of state boards, a new provision whereby chairs appear before Oireachtas committees, in respect of the appointments of individual members of state boards, a system whereby anybody can make application and express an interest in being appointed to a state board. We are continuing to work on that process, and in the course of time we will be bringing forward additional measures to provide, to make the appointment to state boards more accessible to a wider range of people, and to ensure that we have a wider pool of people who wish to participate and who wish to give their services to state boards.